I am 88 years old, and there are 11 things I wish somebody had sat me down and told me while I was still young enough to use them. Nobody did. So I bought each one the long way, a year at a time, and a few of them cost me more than I like to say out loud. I wrote them out this spring at my own kitchen table on the back of an old seed catalog. When I finished, I did not feel ashamed and I did not feel proud. I felt honest, maybe for the first time in years. So tonight I am the one doing the telling. Come sit closer, friend. Bring your cup. The evening is long and I am not in a hurry. I am not telling you that I wasted my life. I am not telling you the years behind you were spent wrong. I am not here to hand anybody a bill. What I am telling you is kinder than that. Almost everything I learned late, and late still counted. Every one of these 11 arrived after the moment I could have used it most, and every one of them still had somewhere to go afterward. That is the part nobody told me. So I am telling you. My grandmother said wisdom is not something the years hand you. It is something you go back and pick up after the years have knocked it out of your hands. She would say it while she was doing something else. Peeling, mending, never looking up. And she said one more thing I have leaned on my whole life. No man ever clears his own trail. He only widens the one somebody walked ahead of him and leaves it wider still for whoever comes behind. I did not understand her for 60 years. I thought a life was something you figured out alone, in private, and graded yourself on at the end. It is not. A life is a trail. Somebody stamped down the brush for you before you were born, and you never once saw them do it. So these 11 are me stamping down brush. Nothing more than that. The first confession is the one that still stings, because it took the most and gave the least. Almost nothing I was afraid of in my 40s ever arrived. Not once. I lay awake over a banknote that got paid. I braced for a sickness that went to somebody else. I rehearsed a hard conversation with my brother for 2 years, and when we finally had it, it lasted 9 minutes, and we both laughed at the end of it. My grandfather said, "Fear is a debt collector who invents most of his own bills." You can spend a whole life paying on debts that were never owed, and he will never once thank you or stop coming. Watch a deer at the edge of a field. It does not run from the shadow of a fence post. It only runs from the shadow that moves. Nearly everything I braced for was a fence post. I ran for 30 years from a shape standing perfectly still. Before I go on, let me set one thing down beside you, and then I will pick the list right back up. I put these 11 lessons into a small book, plain as I could make it, and I called it The Native Way. The link to it is in the description below this video. Tap that link if your heart would like a copy. I am 88. I do not know how many evenings are left in the stack, and a man my age starts wanting the thing he learned to outlast him. That is all the book is. What an old man paid full price for, set down so the next person does not have to pay full price the same way I did. No pressure at all. It is there if you want it, and I am right here whether you ever open it or not. Now let me give you the second confession, because it is the one that runs a man into the ground the quietest. The second confession is that rest is not the reward waiting at the end of the work. It is a tool you pick up in the middle of it. I did not believe that. I believed a man earned his sitting down, and until he earned it, he had no business in a chair. My grandfather kept a plow horse when I was a boy. The horse that is never unhitched breaks before the field is finished. I saw it happen one August, and then I worked myself exactly that way for another 40 years. The men in my valley who stopped at mid-season, who sat in the shade an hour and let the water go down slow, they brought in more, not less. I brought in less, and I brought it in tired. The third confession is that the people who truly loved me never once needed me to be impressive. I knew a man named Eli. He spent 30 years building a name for himself in this town. Chairman of this, first to arrive at that, the fellow you called when a thing had to be done right. He got the name. He got it good and solid. And somewhere around 62 he sat down at his own table and understood that his wife had loved the tired, unimpressive man underneath the name the entire time, and had been waiting all those years for a chance to just sit with him. A river is not admired for being wide. It is only trusted for being there. I spent decades trying to be wide for people who only ever wanted me to be there. The fourth confession is about money, and it is a plain one. Money saved for someday is very often money that never gets spent on the people who needed it today. I was proud of what I set aside. I called it responsibility, and some of it was. But the harvest stored too long in the cellar rots before the winter it was saved for. My grandmother said a thing kept safe long enough stops being safe and starts being wasted. There were shoes I did not buy, a trip my wife mentioned twice and then stopped mentioning. That money did its job for somebody eventually. It just never once did its job for us. The fifth confession is close behind it, and it cost me more. Silence, held too long with somebody I loved, took more from me than any argument ever did. I thought quiet was the safe choice. I thought I was keeping the peace. But a field left fallow past its season does not rest. It hardens. And a hard field takes years to open again. The arguments I had healed inside a week. The silences took decades, and 2 of them never did finish healing. The sixth confession is the one I carried the longest. Forgiving my father did not excuse my father. It only unhooked me from the wagon I had been dragging behind me since I was 19. My grandmother said a grudge is a stone you carry hoping the other man tires first. He never does, she said, and you are the one who ends up with the sore back. I thought forgiving meant saying it was all right. It was not all right, and it never became all right. Forgiving only meant I stopped hauling it uphill. Have you ever seen what aspen roots will do? They will girdle the very tree they came from, choke it slow from underneath, out of sight. That is what I was doing to myself and calling it loyalty to my own hurt. The seventh confession is that for 40 years I mistook being needed for being loved. They are not the same thing, and I could not tell them apart. I was the one who got called. Truck breaks down, call Frank. Roof leaks, call Frank. I mistook the ringing phone for affection. But the well that is drawn from every day is still just a well. It is not admired. It is used, and used gratefully, and nobody sits beside it in the evening for the company. Being needed will keep you busy your whole life and never once fill you. The eighth confession is that the body keeps a ledger, and every year I ignored it. It collected interest quietly. There was a man named Samuel who worked alongside me. His knees started talking to him at 44. He worked straight through every warning they gave him for 2 decades, and he spent the whole of his 70s paying back what his 40s had borrowed. The wagon wheel that is never greased does not break all at once. It wears thin in silence first, and then it goes on a Tuesday with a load on it. I was not much better than Samuel. I just got luckier, and luck is a poor plan. The ninth confession is that most of what I was so certain about at 30, I turned out to be wrong about, and that was allowed to happen. Nobody told me changing my mind was permitted. I thought a man picked his positions and then defended them until he died on top of them. The sapling that will not bend in the first big wind is the one the wind breaks. The ones still standing out there learned to bend early, and nobody calls them weak. They call them old. The 10th confession is that the years I spent waiting to feel ready for a hard conversation were years that conversation waited too, and it did not wait empty-handed. It got heavier the whole time. The stone at the bottom of the hill does not get lighter for the waiting. It only gets more overgrown until you cannot even find the edges to get your hands under it. Ready never came. Ready was never coming. What came was older, and older is not the same thing. And the 11th confession, the one I would carve into a post if I could only keep one. I did not need to finish becoming a good man before I was allowed to start trying. The trying was the becoming. It was the becoming the entire time, and I could not see it, because I was watching for a finish line that does not exist. The river does not wait until it is the sea before it starts moving. The moving is already the river doing its one true work. Now, I want to be careful here, because a list like this can be picked up by the wrong handle. These 11 confessions are not a record of failure. They are not a ledger of regret. They are the record of a man growing, late, slowly, in poor light, but growing all the same. Every confession I just made to you marks the exact spot where I finally grew past something. And that growth is the only thing I own tonight that is worth handing to anybody. So writing them down was not sitting in judgment on the man who lived them. I have made my peace with him. He did the best he could with what he had been told, which was almost nothing. There is a door in every one of these 11. That is what I did not expect when I started counting. I thought I would find 11 closed accounts. What I found was 11 doors, and a door has only ever meant one thing: you are allowed to walk back through it. I stopped waiting for Ready at 81 and had a conversation with my son that I had postponed for 22 years. It went fine. It went better than fine. That was growth at 81, in a kitchen with the coffee going cold. I unhitched the wagon from my father at 76, standing at his grave, which is late by any measure and still counted. So do not read these as 11 verdicts on your life. Read them the way I meant them. 11 places where the fence has a gate in it, and the gate was never locked, and nobody ever told either of us we were permitted to lift the latch. I am lifting it now. At 88. Late is a real thing, but late is not the same as closed. So let me gather this up for you now, the way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl before she stood. Most of what frightens you will never arrive. Rest is a tool, not a prize. Nobody who truly loves you needs you impressive. Money hoarded for someday misses the people who needed it today. Silence costs more than argument. Forgiving unhooks you, not him. Being needed is not being loved. The body keeps a ledger. You are allowed to be wrong about what you were sure of. Hard conversations only get heavier waiting, and the trying is the becoming. 11. Now turn them around and let them face you. What are you bracing for tonight that has never once come? Who is loving the plain, tired version of you while you are out working on the impressive one? What is sitting at the bottom of your hill getting overgrown? And I know the question underneath all of that, because I asked it myself at 81 with my hand on the phone. Is it too late for me? No, friend, it is not. Nothing you have not spent is lost. The gate has been unlocked this whole time. The only thing that ever happened is that nobody walked over and told you. Somebody is on the other end of a phone tonight who would take your call and never once ask what took you so long. Not one of these 11 requires you to be ready first. They only ask you to move, the way the river moves, badly, slowly, sideways if it has to. The moving is already the work. Before you go, stay with me for one more breath and do 3 small things in it. First, leave a comment below and tell me which one of the 11 hit closest to home tonight. Just the number is plenty, because I read every comment in the evening and sit a while with each one. Second, if this old voice has been good company, subscribe to this channel so the fire is easy to find again. And third, come back tomorrow evening and sit down with me right here, because the fire keeps, and so do I.